Captain Lee Minho looked at the screen in front of him and could not believe what he was seeing. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong, because if they were right, then everything the galaxy knew about spaceships and war and physics was completely wrong. The human warship, Defiant Dawn, floated in the black space like a giant metal beast that someone had built from spare parts and anger. It was not pretty like the alien ships with their smooth curves and glowing lights. It was ugly and covered in thick metal plates and had big guns sticking out everywhere. But it was real, and it was here, and according to every smart alien in the galaxy. It should not exist. Lieutenant Park Ji-won sat at her station pressing buttons and watching screens. Full of alien writing, she was 28 years old and had spent her whole life learning how to talk to aliens. Her voice was calm and steady when she spoke, which was good because everyone was very nervous, right? Now, Captain, the alien ships are staying far away from us. She said they keep scanning us with their machines, but none of them want to get close. They are afraid. Minho nodded his head slowly. He was 52 years old and had been flying ships between the stars for most of his adult life. He had commanded 17 different ships before this one, but they were all cargo ships that carried food and art and simple things from Earth to trade with the aliens. He had never commanded a warship before because humans were not supposed to have warships. The aliens thought humans were weak and stupid. They thought human ships were old and broken and barely worked. They thought humans could only make simple things like paintings and music and food that tasted good. The aliens were very, very wrong about that. Kim Dae-jung crawled out of a hole in the floor behind the bridge. His uniform was dirty with oil, and his hands were black from fixing machines. He was the chief engineer, and he knew every bolt and wire and piece of metal on the ship. He wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and smiled. Captain, all our systems are working perfectly. He said the new reactor is running smooth and all our weapons are ready to fire. The aliens still do not know what they are looking at. Do they? Through the big window at the front of the bridge, they could see dozens of alien warships. The alien ships were beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful. Their hulls were made of materials that cost more than entire planets. And they had energy shields that could stop almost any weapon. Each ship had been built by aliens who had been flying between the stars for thousands of years, when humans were still living in caves and hitting things with rocks. But there was the Defiant Dawn sitting right in the middle of them, and it was not beautiful at all. It was covered in scars from where it had been built in secret shipyards hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon. It was made from steel and iron and other simple metals that any planet could dig out of the ground. It had been built by humans using human tools and human ideas and human stubbornness. Commander Yoon Hae-jin was studying the screens at her weapons station. She was 35 years old and had been trained to fight in ways that would make alien warriors wake up screaming. She looked up at the captain with bright, excited eyes. Captain, I count 47 council warships from 12 different alien races. She said the biggest one is that Valkyrian dreadnought. It is 3 kilometers long and has plasma cannons that could blow up a small moon. She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. They are all too scared to come closer. The reason the aliens were scared was simple. 3 days ago, the Defiant Dawn had appeared out of hyperspace right in the middle of an alien military training exercise. 6 Tellurian destroyers had surrounded the human ship and demanded that it surrender so they could inspect it and see what the primitive humans had built. Captain Minho had politely told them no. The lead Tellurian destroyer had fired its weapons at the human ship. The aliens used plasma cannons that turned matter into energy and energy into destruction. The weapons should have turned the Defiant Dawn into glowing gas in less than a second instead. The human ship had just sat there. The alien weapons had hit the thick metal armor and done absolutely nothing. The energy blasts that could destroy mountains had bounced off like raindrops hitting a rock. Then the Defiant Dawn had fired back. The human ship did not use plasma cannons or energy weapons or any of the advanced technology that civilized species used for war. Instead, it used something that the aliens thought was impossible. It fired chunks of solid metal at speeds that approached the speed of light. The Tellurian destroyer had simply stopped existing. One moment it was there firing its advanced weapons and protecting itself with energy shields that had never failed. The next moment there was just empty space and scattered atoms where the ship used to be. Other 5 destroyers had run away as fast as their engines could carry them now. The entire Galactic Council fleet was here. The most powerful military force in the known galaxy was surrounding one human ship, and nobody wanted to get close enough to fight it. Minho walked to the big window and looked out at the alien ships. He could see their weapons pointed at his ship. He could see the energy signatures of their shields and the glow of their engines. He had studied alien technology for years while pretending to be just another simple human trader. He knew exactly how powerful those ships were. He also knew that they had no idea what they were really facing. The aliens thought the Defiant Dawn was just one ship built by one primitive species that had gotten lucky with some new technology. They thought that if they destroyed this one ship, then the problem would go away and they could go back to ruling the galaxy the way they always had. They did not know that the Defiant Dawn was just the first. Human ships were being built in hidden shipyards throughout human space. Each one was different. Each one used technology that pushed the laws of physics in new directions. Each one was crewed by humans who had been trained to think in ways that alien minds could not follow. The aliens had made the galaxy safe and comfortable and predictable. They had rules for everything and explanations for why things worked the way they did. They had built their civilization on the idea that there were limits to what was possible, and that smart people accepted those limits. Humans had never been very good at accepting limits. Minho touched a button on his chair, and his voice was broadcast to every member of his crew. All 87 humans on the ship could hear him speak. "This is your captain," he said. "We are making history today. For 50 years humans have been watching and learning and preparing. Today we show the galaxy that we are not the weak primitive species they think we are. Today we show them that human beings do not accept limits imposed by others." He paused and looked out at the alien fleet again. "Be ready for anything. The aliens are confused and scared. Confused and scared people do stupid things. We will not do stupid things. We will be smart and careful, and we will survive this. We will go home to Earth, and we will tell our people that the galaxy is about to change." On the alien flagship, Admiral Veltar was staring at readings that made no sense according to everything he knew about science and engineering. His 4 eyes had evolved to see tiny details at great distances, but they could not help him understand what he was looking at. The human ship was an impossibility. It was made of primitive materials using simple construction techniques. Its power source did not match any known fusion or antimatter signature. Its weapons were crude kinetic projectiles that should not have been able to penetrate modern shields, yet it had destroyed a council destroyer with a single shot. Volter had been fighting wars in space for over 200 years. He had commanded fleets that conquered star systems and brought entire civilizations under council rule. He had never seen anything like this. The humans were supposed to be traders and artists. They sold simple goods and bought basic technology. They lived on one small planet at the edge of civilized space and minded their own business. Now Thissa warship that broke every rule of known science, crewed by a species that was not supposed to understand advanced physics. Something was very wrong with the galaxy's understanding of humanity, and Admiral Veltar was about to find out just how wrong they had been. Admiral Veltar stood in the command center of his flagship and stared at the holographic display that showed the human ship floating in the middle of his fleet. The image rotated slowly, showing every angle of the primitive vessel, but the more he looked at it, the less sense it made. His 4 eyes had been designed by evolution to spot the smallest movement at incredible distances. They had helped his species become the greatest hunters on their homeworld, and later the most feared warriors in space. But right now they could not help him understand what he was seeing. The human ship, called Defiant Dawn, looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. It had thick armor plates welded together in rough patterns. Its weapons were simple tubes that stuck out from the hull like the cannons on ancient sailing ships. Its engines glowed with a dull red light instead of the bright blue of proper antimatter drives. Yet this ugly primitive ship had destroyed one of his best destroyers with a single shot. Report, he commanded in the clicking language of his people. The translator built into his throat turned his words into the common trade language that all civilized species use. Science officer Quine moved closer to the display. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors when she was thinking hard. Right now she was flashing red and orange, which meant she was very confused. Admiral The human vessel appears to be made mostly of iron and carbon steel. She said these are the most basic metals that any species learns to work with when they first develop technology. Their power source is unlike anything in our databases. It does not match fusion antimatter or zero-point energy. What about their weapons? Veltar asked. Simple kinetic projectiles, sir. Nothing more than chunks of metal accelerated to very high speed. Quian paused, and her crystal body flashed brighter. It is the most primitive weapon design we have encountered in 6,000 years. But somehow they are achieving velocities that should require antimatter catalyst. Veltar clicked his mandibles together in frustration. The humans had been trading in council space for over 50 years. Everyone knew them as harmless merchants who sold artwork and food and raw materials from their single planet. They bought basic technology that most species developed within decades of achieving spaceflight. They were considered barely worth noticing, a minor species that would never amount to anything important. Now they saw a warship that violated every principle of known science, crewed by beings that were not supposed to understand advanced physics. But there was something else that bothered Veltar, something that made his combat instincts twitch with warning. The human captain had looked directly at him through the view screen, and Veltar had seen something in those small mammalian eyes that he recognized. It was the look of a predator, not the look of prey pretending to be dangerous, but the real thing, the look of something that hunted and killed and survived by being better at violence than anything else around it. Open a channel to the human ship, Veltar ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the human vessel. It was cramped and ugly with exposed pipes and blinking lights everywhere. The crew worked at stations that looked like they had been built in someone's garage, but they moved with efficiency and purpose that spoke of long training. The human captain appeared on screen. He was small even for his species, with graying hair and a face marked by years of space travel. But when he looked at Veltar, the admiral felt something he had not experienced in 2 centuries of warfare. He felt like Prey Captain Lee Minho of the human vessel, Defiant Dawn, the man said in accented but clear council standard. I believe we need to talk indeed. Veltar replied, trying to project the authority that had made him supreme commander of council forces. Your ship has destroyed a council vessel without provocation. You will surrender immediately for inspection, and your crew will be detained for questioning. No, the word hit Veltar like a physical blow. It was said quietly, without anger or emotion, but it carried a weight of absolute finality that made his blood run cold. Your ships attacked first, the human continued. We defended ourselves. Now we are going to have a conversation about humanity's place in this galaxy. You are in no position to make demands. Veltar snarled, his translator struggling to convey his growing rage. You are one ship against my entire fleet. The human captain smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, with respect, you do not understand what you are dealing with. We have been watching your people for 50 years. We know how you think, how you fight, how you build your ships. We know your strengths and we know your weaknesses. You know nothing about us. Veltar was about to respond when his tactical officer interrupted with urgent clicks. Admiral, I am detecting energy buildups throughout the human vessel. Their weapon systems are coming online. All weapon systems? He asked. All of them, sir. The tactical officer's voice carried fear, plus several others that I cannot identify on the screen. The human captain was still smiling. Admiral Veltar, you have 2 choices. You can try to destroy us and learn exactly what human engineering is capable of, or you can listen to what we have to say and maybe avoid a war that will change this galaxy forever. The choice is yours. Veltar looked around his command center at officers who had served with him for decades. He saw fear in their eyes and confusion. They had never faced an enemy that spoke to them like this, an enemy that acted like they were the ones in control. What do you want? The admiral asked. Finally, to talk, the human replied. To explain some things that your people need to understand about limits and possibilities and what happens when a species refuses to accept that something is impossible. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the destroyer that had been reduced to atoms. He thought about the readings that made no sense. He thought about the smile on the human captain's face. Very well, he said. Talk. The human nodded. Thank you, Admiral. Let me start with a question. When your people first achieved spaceflight, what did you think was impossible? Many things, Veltar replied warily. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, energy shields, and yet you achieved all of those things. Yes, through centuries of research and development. The human leaned forward in his chair. What if I told you that your people stopped trying to achieve the impossible too early? What if the things you think cannot be done are just things you have not figured out how to do yet? That is ridiculous, Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. There are natural laws, universal constants, things that cannot be changed, the human captain gestured to something off-screen. A moment later, a section of the human ship simply disappeared, not cloaked, not hidden, but gone as if it had never existed. Then it reappeared exactly where it had been before. Admiral, the human said quietly, we have learned to make things that should not exist. We have learned to do things that your science says are impossible. We are not here to conquer your empire. We are here to teach you that the universe is much stranger than you think. How? Veltar whispered. By refusing to accept limits that others told us were absolute, the human replied by asking what if instead of accepting no. By remembering that impossible is just another word for not yet. Discovered. The channel closed, leaving Veltar staring at a blank screen, surrounded by officers who looked as shaken as he felt in the silence of his command center. The Admiral of the Galactic Council Fleet realized that everything he thought he knew about the universe had just become questionable, and somewhere in the back of his mind a small voice was whispering that maybe the humans were right, maybe impossible was just another challenge to overcome. Dr. Choi Yunji worked frantically in the medical laboratory deep inside the Defiant Dawn. Her hands moved quickly between machines that looked nothing like the sleek medical equipment used throughout Council space. These were built by humans for humans, using principles that alien doctors would not understand. The lab was cramped and filled with the smell of metal and electronics, but it contained instruments that could analyze life at levels that the galaxy's greatest scientists had never imagined. Yunji had spent 3 years building each device by hand using techniques that human researchers had developed in secret. Jiho, hand me the quantum scanner, she called to her assistant medical technician. Bei Jiho was 26 years old and brilliant in ways that made older doctors jealous. He had helped design half the equipment in the lab and could repair anything with simple tools. Doctor, are you sure this will work? Jiho asked as he passed her the scanner. The device was heavy and covered in switches and dials, unlike the energy-based tools that aliens used. It looked primitive, but it could see things that no other medical equipment in the galaxy could detect. It has to work, Yunji replied, adjusting the scanner's settings. The Council thinks they know everything about biology, about how life develops across the galaxy. They think they understand the limits of what living things can achieve. They are about to learn they are very wrong. For the past 3 days she had been analyzing tissue samples from every major species in the Galactic Council. She had compared their genetic structures to human DNA using techniques that would revolutionize alien medicine if they ever learned about them. What she had discovered was so important that it could change the course of the war. The aliens believed that intelligent life followed predictable patterns. They thought there were natural limits to how smart or strong or fast a species could become without using technology to enhance themselves. They had built their entire civilization on the assumption that biology had boundaries that could not be crossed. Humans were living proof that this assumption was completely wrong. On the bridge, Captain Minho listened to reports from every section of his ship. The Defiant Dawn carried only 87 crew members, which was a tiny fraction of what any Council vessel needed, but each person on board represented the absolute best of what humanity could produce. Captain called Navigator Oh Sunmi from her station. I am detecting movement in the Council formation. 3 heavy cruisers are moving to flanking positions. Let them. Minho replied calmly. Hygiene, are our weapons ready? All systems armed and ready, sir. Commander Yoon reported from the tactical station. If they want to test us again, we are prepared. The truth was that the Defiant Dawn carried weapons that made the destruction of the Tellurian destroyer look like a small demonstration hidden within its armored hull. Were devices that humanity had developed in absolute secrecy, weapons that used principles the galaxy had never considered. Humanity had spent 50 years carefully watching galactic civilization. They had learned that advanced species had grown comfortable with their technology. They had optimized their weapons and shields and engines within known parameters, but they had never questioned whether those parameters were actually limits or just boundaries they had accepted without thinking. When Human engineers were told something was impossible. They had a tendency to prove the universe wrong. In her laboratory, Dr. Yunji stared at the results of her analysis and felt excitement building in her chest. What she was seeing would change everything. The galaxy thought it knew about life and evolution and the potential of intelligent species. Look at this, she said, pointing to the display. The genetic diversity indices for every council species cluster around the same narrow range. Most of them are essentially identical to each other compared to the variation between individual humans. What does that mean? Jiho asked, leaning over her shoulder. To study the data, it means they have reached evolutionary stability. Yunji explained. Their species stopped changing thousands of years ago. They achieved a genetic equilibrium and stayed there. But humans, she paused and smiled. Humans are still evolving. She pulled up another set of data that showed brain structure comparisons. Our neural development patterns are completely different from theirs. Council species have brains that follow predictable structures with processing capabilities that can be measured and categorized, and human brains are still developing new pathways, still creating new connections, still finding new ways to process information. Yunji said with growing excitement, we are not just another intelligent species. We are intelligence that is still becoming something more. The implications were staggering. While galactic civilization had reached what they considered biological maturity thousands of years ago, humanity was still changing, still growing, still developing capabilities that other species could only achieve through artificial enhancement. This explained why human intuition could solve problems that alien computers could not process, why human engineers could look at impossible challenges and find solutions that no one else had considered, why human pilots could react to situations faster than enhanced alien reflexes. Our reaction times are faster than any recorded species. Yunji continued. Our ability to adapt to new environments exceeds anything in council records. Our problem-solving capabilities are enhanced by genetic diversity that they cannot match. She looked at Jiho with bright eyes. We are not just different from them. We are what they used to be before they decided that evolution was finished. On the bridge, the standoff continued. But now more alien ships were arriving. Through hyperspace, the Galactic Council was assembling the largest fleet in recorded history, but none of them dared get close enough to attack the single human vessel. Captain reported. Communications Officer Park Jiwan, I am intercepting transmissions between the alien fleets. They are arguing about what to do with us. Some want to destroy us immediately, others want to capture us for study, and the third option, Minho asked, them are starting to suggest negotiation. Jiwan replied, they want to understand how we built this ship. They would not understand if we explained it, muttered Chief Engineer Kim Dae-jung from his position at the damage control station. They have been building the same way for thousands of years. They have forgotten how to think outside their own limitations. The truth was that human technology did not violate the laws of physics. It simply used them in ways that galactic civilization had never considered. Where aliens built with energy fields and exotic matter, humans built with metallurgy and mechanical engineering pushed to absolute limits. Where aliens used computers to control every system, humans relied on intuition and adaptability and the willingness to try things that their machines said would not work. The result was technology that functioned when it should have failed, lasted longer than calculations predicted, and could be modified in ways that broke every computer model the galaxy used. Dr. Yunji finished her analysis and prepared to brief the senior staff. What she had discovered would change how humanity approached not just this confrontation but their entire relationship with galactic civilization. The aliens thought they were dealing with another species that had gotten lucky with some new technology. They had no idea they were facing the next step in the evolution of intelligence itself, and that realization was about to change everything. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 6 hours of the human demonstration. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in virtual space while their fleets maintained careful distances from the impossible human warship. The great chamber that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations now buzzed with translations as dozens of languages tried to find words for concepts that had never existed before. Counselor Thexra of the Altarian Federation spoke first. Her aquatic form shimmered in the holographic display as water flowed around her in patterns that indicated deep concern. "The humans have violated every principle of the peaceful contact protocol," she said in the liquid tones of her people. "Their vessel destroyed a council ship without any warning or provocation, Counselor." Morden of the Talorian Republic shifted uncomfortably in his ceremonial chair, his scaled hide flushed with colors that indicated embarrassment and shame. After being fired upon first, he corrected in a voice that cracked with emotion, "Our destroyer opened fire on the human vessel. The humans merely responded more effectively than our tactical computers predicted." The chamber erupted in a chaos of different languages as species that had not spoken directly to each other in centuries suddenly found themselves united in confusion and fear. Some demanded immediate military action, others called for scientific investigation, a few suggested that they should simply pretend the humans did not exist and hope the problem would go away. "High Counselor." Zendal, eldest of all the assembled representatives, raised one of his 6 arms for silence. His species had been spacefaring for over 8,000 years, and his personal experience spanned nearly 6 centuries of galactic politics. When he spoke, every other voice fell quiet. "The issue is not who fired the first shot," he said in the ancient ceremonial language that all council members were required to learn. "The issue is how a species we classified as primitive traders has developed technology that our greatest scientists insist cannot exist aboard." The Defiant Dawn communications officer Park Ji-won sat at her station surrounded by screens full of intercepted alien transmissions. Her training in xenolinguistics allowed her to understand far more than the aliens realized. She had spent years studying not just their languages, but the psychological patterns behind how different species communicated. "Captain," she reported to Minho, who stood watching the alien fleet through the main view screen, "they are holding an emergency council session right now. They are arguing about whether to classify us as a military threat or a scientific anomaly." "What are the different factions saying?" Minho asked. "The military commanders want to destroy us immediately before we can reveal whatever technology we are using to other species. The scientists want to capture us alive so they can study our ship and hopefully understand our engineering. The politicians are split between those who want to negotiate and those who want to pretend this never happened." Minho nodded grimly. This was exactly what humanity's strategic planners had predicted. The aliens had grown comfortable with their position as the dominant force in the galaxy. They had not faced a real challenge to their supremacy in over 2,000 years. Chief Engineer Kim Dae-jung looked up from his maintenance console where he was monitoring every system on the ship. "Captain, they are also transmitting technical specifications about our hull composition and weapon signatures to their research facilities." "Good," Minho replied. "Let them analyze it all they want. They will not understand what they are looking at." That was the beautiful irony of the situation. The aliens could scan the Defiant Dawn with every sensor they possessed. They could analyze its hull materials and energy signatures and weapon output. They could feed all that data into the most advanced computers in the galaxy, and they would still not understand how it worked, because human technology was not just different. It was based on principles that galactic civilization had abandoned thousands of years ago. In the council chamber, the debate was growing more heated. Councillor Vexenol of the Silicon Hegemony was arguing that the humans represented an existential threat to galactic stability. His species had evolved from crystalline formations and thought in terms of mathematical precision. "If one minor species can develop weapons that render our fleets obsolete," he said in tones that sounded like breaking glass, "then our entire defensive doctrine is worthless. We must eliminate this threat before other species begin to question our authority." Counselor Yathara of the Biomechanical Collective disagreed. Her species had merged with their technology centuries ago, becoming a hybrid of flesh and machine. "Every rational analysis indicates that the humans have achieved a breakthrough in applied physics," she argued. "If we destroy them, we lose the opportunity to understand their discoveries." "But what if we cannot understand their technology?" asked Councillor Durkin of the Energy Wraiths. His people existed as pure consciousness inhabiting energy fields. What if their science is based on principles that our minds cannot comprehend? The question hung in the virtual air like a poisonous cloud. The assembled representatives had never considered that there might be forms of knowledge that their advanced civilizations could not grasp. They had assumed that intelligence followed predictable patterns and that any technology could be reverse engineered given enough time and resources on. The defiant Dawn Dr. Choi Yoonji was preparing to brief the senior staff on her discoveries. She had spent 3 days analyzing biological samples from every major council species, and what she had found would revolutionize their understanding of intelligence itself. She entered the briefing room where Captain Minho and his department heads were waiting. The room was small and cramped, but it contained some of the most advanced scientific equipment that humanity had ever produced. What I am about to tell you will change how we think about our place in the galaxy. She began activating a display that showed genetic comparison charts. Every species in the Council follows similar evolutionary patterns. They develop intelligence, achieve spaceflight, establish interstellar civilizations, and then they stop. How asked Commander Yoon Hejin, their biology reaches what they consider natural limits, Yunji explained. They use technology to exceed those limits, but they never push their actual biology further. They achieve what they call evolutionary stability and remain there. Captain Minho leaned forward, and humans never stopped evolving, Yunji replied with barely contained excitement. Our brains are still developing new neural pathways. Our reflexes continue to improve. Our ability to adapt to new environments exceeds anything in council records. We are not just another intelligent species. We are intelligence that is still in the process of becoming something more. The implications hit the room like a physical force. While every other species in the galaxy had reached biological maturity thousands of years ago, humans were still changing, still developing capabilities that others could only achieve through artificial enhancement. This explains why human intuition can solve problems that alien computers cannot process. Unji continued, why human engineers can find solutions to impossible challenges, why human pilots can react faster than artificially enhanced alien reflexes. Our genetic diversity is also orders of magnitude higher than any council species, she added. Most of them are essentially clones compared to the variation between individual humans. That diversity gives us problem-solving capabilities they cannot match. In the council chamber, the debate was reaching a crescendo. Some representatives were demanding immediate military action while others insisted on scientific caution. The great alliance that had maintained galactic peace for millennia was fracturing under the pressure of facing something they could not understand or control. High Counselor Zendel called for order once again, but his authority was weaker now. The revelation that a single human ship could defeat entire fleets had shaken the foundation of everything. The council represented, we need more information, he declared. Send a diplomatic mission to establish formal contact with the human government. Learn their intentions and capabilities before we make any irreversible decisions. Counselor Thextra objected strongly. What if they have more ships? What if this is just the beginning of an invasion? We cannot afford to show weakness. Then we will learn that through diplomacy rather than warfare, Zendel replied, because if we are wrong, if we attack them and fail, we may face the complete collapse of our civilization. The debate continued, but the damage was already done. The Galactic Council that had ruled space for thousands of years was discovering that there were limits to their power, and those limits had just been demonstrated by a species they had dismissed as harmless traitors. The universe was about to become a much more dangerous and unpredictable place. Dr. Choi Yoonji stood before the assembled senior staff in the cramped briefing room of the defiant Dawn. Her research data filled every screen around them, displaying information that would fundamentally change how the galaxy understood biology and evolution. The excitement in her voice was barely contained as she prepared to reveal discoveries that had taken her 3 years to complete. What I'm about to show you will revolutionize our approach to this conflict, she began, gesturing to the complex charts and graphs surrounding them. Every species in the Council believes they have reached the peak of biological development. They think evolution is something that happens to primitive species and stops once intelligence is achieved. Captain Minho studied the data with the careful attention of someone who had spent decades making life or death decisions based on incomplete information. And what does your research show? That they are completely wrong about everything, Yuji replied with a brilliant smile. Our analysis of tissue samples from 47 different council species shows that they all follow the same pattern. They achieved genetic stability and then remain essentially unchanged for thousands of years. He activated another display showing brain structure comparisons. Their neural development follows predictable patterns with processing capabilities that can be measured and categorized. Each species reaches a cognitive ceiling and stops growing. Navigator Osungni leaned forward, studying the alien brain scans, so they think intelligence has limits, not just limits, Yunji said. Natural boundaries that cannot be crossed without artificial enhancement. They use technology to supplement their biology, but they never consider pushing their biology itself beyond what they think is possible. And humans, Chief Engineer Kim Dae-jung asked, though from his expression he already suspected the answer. Humans never stopped evolving, Onji replied, activating a display that showed human genetic diversity patterns. Our brains are still developing new neural pathways every generation. Our reflexes are improving. Our ability to process complex information continues to expand. We are not just intelligent, we are intelligence that is still becoming more intelligent. The briefing room fell silent as the implications sank in. Every other species in the galaxy had essentially stopped growing thousands of years ago, while humanity continued to develop capabilities that they could only dream of achieving through technology. This explains everything, Commander Yoon Hae-jin said quietly. Why we can solve problems their computers cannot handle. Why our engineering works when their calculations say it should fail. Why we can adapt to situations that overwhelm their enhanced reflexes. Exactly, Yunji confirmed. Our genetic diversity is also unprecedented. Most council species show genetic variation comparable to a single human family. We have more diversity in one city than they have in their entire civilization. That genetic diversity translated into problem-solving capabilities that no other species could match. When faced with an impossible challenge, humans could approach it from thousands of different angles, using intuition and creativity that artificial intelligence could not replicate. On the bridge, the tactical situation was growing more complex. Long-range sensors detected massive hyperspace distortions approaching from the direction of the galactic core. More council fleets were arriving, but none of them dared approach within weapons range of the human ship. Captain reported Communications Officer Park Ji-won. I am detecting encrypted transmissions between the alien commanders. They are coordinating the largest military response in recorded galactic history. How many ships? Navigator Oh Sunmi asked from her station. Over 300 confirmed contacts, Ji-won replied, with additional fleets still arriving. Every major species in the council is sending their most advanced warships. Minho walked to the main view screen and looked out at the growing alien armada. Each ship represented centuries of technological development, crewed by beings whose civilizations had mastered space travel when humans were still discovering agriculture. Yet none of them dared get close enough to engage the single human vessel. Captain called Chief Engineer Kim Dae-jung from his monitoring station. I am detecting massive hyperspace distortions. Something much larger than a normal fleet is coming through. The space around them began to ripple with energy distortions that made the normal patterns of hyperspace travel look like gentle waves. A tear in reality opened wider than anything they had seen before, and from it emerged a ship that dwarfed everything else in the system, the Council flagship Eternal Vigilance. Was 5 kilometers of advanced alien engineering that represented the absolute pinnacle of galactic military technology. Its hull was made from materials that existed only in the cores of neutron stars. Its weapons could devastate entire fleets. Its shields had never been penetrated by any known weapon. Supreme Admiral Kethver himself had come to deal with the human problem. The alien fleet immediately reorganized itself around the massive flagship, forming defensive formations that had been perfected over millennia of warfare. Every ship took position according to tactical doctrines that had never failed in over 2,000 years of galactic conflict. Admiral Kethver was the most experienced military commander in known space. His species, the ancient Valdorians, had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. He had personally commanded fleets that had conquered entire star systems and brought dozens of civilizations under council rule. He had never lost a battle on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn. Captain Minho watched the alien formations with professional interest. He had studied galactic military doctrine for decades. While pretending to be a simple cargo ship captain, he understood exactly what he was looking at. "They are preparing for a siege," he observed to his crew. "They think they can surround us and force us to surrender through superior numbers, Commander." Yoon Hae-jin checked her weapon systems. "All our systems are operating at peak efficiency, Captain. If they want to test our capabilities against their entire fleet, we are ready." The truth was that the Defiant Dawn carried weapon systems that would make the destruction of the single Tellurian destroyer look like a minor demonstration. Hidden throughout its hull were devices that used principles of physics that the galaxy had never considered. Weaponizing humanity had spent 50 years studying galactic civilization and had identified every weakness in their technology and tactics. The aliens had grown comfortable with predictable warfare using established weapons against known defenses. They had optimized their systems within parameters that they believed were absolute. They had never faced an enemy that refused to accept those parameters as limitations supreme. Admiral Kethfer appeared on the main view screen of the Defiant Dawn. His ancient face showed the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. His species had evolved as apex predators, and that predatory intelligence still burned in his eyes. "Human Captain," he began, his voice carrying the authority of 10,000 years of military tradition, "you have created a crisis that threatens the stability of galactic civilization. Your ship possesses capabilities that violate established scientific principles. You will surrender immediately for detailed study, or we will be forced to destroy you." Captain Minho stood slowly facing the most powerful military commander in the known galaxy with calm confidence. "Supreme Admiral, with all due respect, you do not understand what you are dealing with. Enlighten me." Kethfer replied, "You have built a galaxy based on the assumption that intelligence has natural limits." Minho said quietly, "That there are things that cannot be achieved, boundaries that cannot be crossed. You have created a comfortable cage and called it civilization, and you believe humans are somehow exempt from universal law. We believe universal law is much larger than you have imagined." Minho replied, "The laws of physics do not limit what is possible. They define what tools are available for those brave enough to use them." Supreme Admiral Kethfer had conquered star systems with less provocation than this, but something in the human captain's voice made him pause. There was no bravado, no desperation, just quiet confidence, backed by demonstrated capability. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "To show you that impossible is just another word for not yet discovered," Minho replied. "To prove that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than your civilization has allowed itself to believe." The channel closed, leaving both commanders to prepare for a confrontation that would determine the future of galactic civilization. In the depths of space, the largest fleet ever assembled prepared to face a single human ship, and neither side was fully prepared for what was about to happen. The final confrontation began not with the roar of weapons or the flash of explosions, but with a conversation that would echo through galactic history. Supreme Admiral Kethfer appeared on the main screen of the Defiant Dawn, and every member of the human crew could see why he had never lost a battle in 10,000 years of warfare. His species, the ancient Valdorians, had evolved as the ultimate predators on a world where only the strongest and smartest survived. His eyes held the cold intelligence of something that had hunted and killed across the galaxy for millennia. He was arguably the most experienced military commander who had ever lived. "Human Captain Kethfer," began, his voice carrying authority that had brought entire civilizations to their knees, "you have 47 minutes to surrender your vessel for inspection. After that time expires, I will order the combined firepower of 438 warships to reduce your ship to component atoms." Captain Lee Minho stood before the viewscreen looking remarkably calm for someone facing the largest military force ever assembled. His crew worked quietly at their stations, showing no signs of fear or panic. They had trained for this moment for years. "Supreme Admiral," Minho replied with quiet respect, "you are about to make the greatest mistake in galactic history." Kethfer's predatory eyes narrowed. "Explain." "For the past 50 years, humanity has been studying your civilization. We have learned your languages, mastered your technology, understood your military doctrines. We know exactly how you think and how you fight." Minho paused and looked directly into the alien commander's eyes. "You know nothing about Yuzi." "No, enough," Kethfer replied coldly. "I know that you Are one ship facing my entire fleet? I know that your primitive weapons destroyed one destroyer through luck or some crude technological advantage. I know that you are about to discover the price of defying the Galactic Council. Minho smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Admiral, you are about to learn that everything your civilization believes about the limits of technology and physics and warfare is wrong. The transmission ended, and across 400 alien warships' combat systems came online energy weapons that could crack planets charged to full power shields that had never failed activated to maximum strength. Targeting computers that had calculated the destruction of 1,000 worlds locked onto the lone human vessel on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn. Captain Minho turned to his crew. Are all systems ready, Chief Engineer? Kim Dejong checked his displays. All reactors operating at peak efficiency, sir. New weapon systems fully charged and ready. Commander Yoon Haijin reported from Tactical All-Firing Solutions. Calculated, Captain. We have targets locked on every ship in their fleet. Communications Officer Park Ji-won looked up from her station. Captain, I am receiving surrender demands from 67 different alien commanders. They are offering us various terms if we give up peacefully. Tell them thank you, but no. Minho replied calmly. Navigator, prepare for combat maneuvering. Navigator, Osunmi activated systems that most of the galaxy would have considered impossible. Her hands moved across controls that manipulated space and time in ways that alien science insisted could not be done. Ready, sir, she reported. Dr. Choi Yunji spoke from the science station. Captain, all biological enhancement protocols are active. The crew is operating at peak human efficiency. What she meant was that every person on the Defiant Dawn was functioning at the absolute limit of human capability. Their reaction times enhanced by genetic optimization that had taken generations to achieve. Their thinking processes accelerated by neural pathways that continued to evolve with each new generation. They were not just humans. They were what humans were becoming. The alien fleet opened fire, and the space around the Defiant Dawn erupted in a display of destructive force that could have sterilized entire solar systems. Plasma cannons that turned matter into pure energy fired in perfect coordination. Particle beams that could tunnel through the cores of planets struck with mathematical precision. Energy weapons that had never failed to destroy their targets unleashed enough power to illuminate half the galaxy. The combined firepower of 438 warships struck the human vessel simultaneously, and absolutely nothing happened. The Defiant Dawn sat motionless in space as weapons that could destroy fleets washed over its hull like gentle rain. The thick armor plating that looked so primitive absorbed energies that should have vaporized it instantly. Advanced alien targeting systems registered direct hits, but their weapons had no effect whatsoever. Supreme Admiral Kethver stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Every weapon in his fleet had fired at maximum power. Every shot had struck the target. Every computer confirmed successful hits, yet the human ship showed no damage at all. Impossible, he whispered on. The human ship. Captain Minho watched the alien weapons strike his vessel. Without concern, human engineering had solved the problem of energy weapons decades ago by asking a simple question. If energy follows predictable patterns, why not redirect those patterns somewhere else? The Defiant Dawn did not absorb the alien attacks. It channeled them through dimensional folds that dumped the destructive energy into empty space light years away. The aliens were essentially firing at nothing while their sensors registered hits on a target that was not really there now. It is our turn, Minho said quietly. What happened next? Shattered every tactical computer in the alien fleet. The Defiant Dawn simply vanished, not through hyperspace or cloaking technology, but through a method that human physicists had developed by refusing to accept that space and time were separate things. If they were connected, as every theory suggested, then why could movement through one not be achieved by manipulating the other? The human ship reappeared instantly behind the alien formation, moving faster than light, without entering hyperspace. Its weapons were already firing, but not the crude kinetic projectiles. The aliens expected instead the Defiant Dawn unleash something that redefined the concept of warfare itself. The weapons used the quantum structure of space as ammunition, attacking the fundamental forces that held matter together. Alien shields designed to stop every known form of energy proved useless against weapons that dissolved the atomic bonds of the shield. Generators themselves, ships did not explode, they simply stopped. Being ships, their molecular structure came apart at the quantum level, scattering their atoms across light years of